Imagine being a dominant team, a team that repeated the champions the season before and had a golden chance at a three-peat that many NHL teams could only dream of. And you lose in the second round. Not the first round, thankfully, not the conference finals or even the Stanley Cup finals. Amazing. Well, that's what this team did back in 1993. A little background on the Pittsburgh Penguins. In 1967, the Pittsburgh Penguins were born as one of the members of the great expansion of 6 new NHL teams that would be comprised of the West Division. Basically, what the NHL was hoping for was an original 6 versus new school matchup. So basically, someone from the West will get to the Stanley Cup Finals against someone from the East. That plan worked for 3 years, but unfortunately, the West Division had no clear-cut winners. So thankfully, after expansion in 1970, they decided to move the Blackhawks from the East to the West Division and try to make some parity happen. The Pittsburgh Penguins started up life as the Penguins. The funny thing about Pittsburgh is that this was not the first NHL team to be in Pittsburgh. Oh no. They were once called the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I kid you not. I don't know why they would name their team after the baseball one. The Pittsburgh team did not really go far in the Stanley Cup playoffs before being sold off to Philadelphia to be the Quakers in 1930-31, who then of course folded. But the Pittsburgh Penguins were of sound body and mind. So Pittsburgh started off life wearing weird blue, two-toned blue outfits with those skating penguins. They even had a skating penguin, a live skating penguin. Unfortunately, he died quickly and was mounted and stuffed in the GM's office. Pittsburgh decided, after a long layoff in the 1970s, to decide to change their colors to black and white and gold, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and of course the Pittsburgh Pirates. Of course, there has been no NBA team in Pittsburgh, so all 4 teams wearing the same, all 4 big 4 teams wearing the same color scheme. Pittsburgh actually had a golden chance in 1975 to do well in the playoffs. They were taking on the New York Islanders in the Stanley Cup quarterfinals. They were up 3 games to none. The New York Islanders had a young Chico Resch in net. Billy Smith was not developed yet. And for some reason, Pittsburgh fell flat. They lost 1-0 in Game 7 on home ice to the New York Islanders and didn't recover. The city of Pittsburgh suffered through lots of bankruptcy issues in their first few years of existence. Not to mention the tragic death of a promising Pittsburgh player by the name of Michel Briere, who died a year later from his injuries. He was the last Penguin to wear number 21, by the way. So, Michel Briere aside, Pittsburgh was facing a lot of problems. They had bad ownership, bad money deals. Looked like their team was going to either fold or be merged with someone else. And then came a rare light. After a 1981 playoffs that they had a chance to knock off the defending Stanley Cup champion New York Islanders and failed miserably. No, that was 1982, pardon. 1981, they had a chance to knock down St. Louis, the second best team in the NHL, during that season and failed. Pittsburgh was up against it. Pittsburgh had some terrible play and all that. They were terrible. But in 1984, with this great 6'4" center by the name of Mario Lemieux over in Laval, turning up the league, everyone wanted to be the number 1 pick to be Mario Lemieux. Pittsburgh had a problem. The New Jersey Devils were just as bad. So the Penguins decided to take steps needed to get that number 1 draft pick. Even putting a minor league goalie by the name of Vincent Tremblay in the net for Pittsburgh to lose games on purpose. And it was on purpose because people haven't admitted to their mistake. Pittsburgh got lucky, got the number 1 draft pick, which they took the great Mario Lemieux. Lemieux refused to put the Penguins jersey on, because of contract negotiations, not because he didn't want to go to Pittsburgh, but he wanted to be paid out the nose. Pittsburgh, unfortunately, gave him what he wanted. The Devils didn't have much problem. But they had a consolation prize, Kirk Bowler, who was pretty good. So the Penguins were decent for a little bit. But Mario Lemieux blossomed. His first shift in his NHL career, he scored a goal in a loss, though. The Penguins were struggling, very much struggling. However, in 1989, Mario Lemieux caught fire. Not only did he win the Art Ross Trophy, he actually won the Hart Trophy, wrestling away from Wayne Gretzky. That was amazing. Lemieux put the Penguins on his back, and Pittsburgh had a famous 10-7 win over the Philadelphia Flyers in one of their playoff games, with Lemieux putting up 5 goals in that game. Mario Lemieux also had a game that he scored every way conceivable. Power play, shorthanded, even strength, penalty shot, empty net. That against the Devil Dogs. Pittsburgh just wasn't there yet. This coin phrase. However, in 1991, the Penguins actually had some issues. The team actually only took third in their division behind the New Jersey Devils. Penguins and Devils would be the first round matchup in 91. A lot of drama happened, and that was when Tom Barrasso went down to injury after Game 5 of the series, forcing Frank Pietrangelo to be the goalie. And Frank Pietrangelo is famous for the big save off Peter Stastny that saved the Penguins' season for now, as the Penguins did beat the Devils in 7 games to move on to round 2. The Penguins would take on the Washington Capitals, and Washington was no match for the Penguins, the resurging Penguins. The 91 Penguins that had Lemieux be the leader, and Jaromir Jagr, 5th overall pick in 1990, who amazingly got to the NHL without having to deal with the Iron Curtain. And then Pittsburgh, of course, did fantastic. They had a famous draft day, a trade deadline deal that sent John Colin for Ron Francis. They picked up Ron Francis and even Ulf Samuelsson in that deal. That was amazing how they picked up Colin, Francis, and Samuelsson, and it helped the team out. Pittsburgh didn't do that badly in the long run. But unfortunately for the Penguins, well, they had Mark Recchi, who was a pretty good player. Things would go awry. People thought that Pittsburgh had no chance against the Boston Bruins, the big bad Bruins who went to the Stanley Cup Finals the year prior. Penguins took them out in 6 games. Penguins would now take on the Minnesota North Stars, the biggest Cinderella in recent memory. The North Stars took out the top 2 teams in the NHL, Chicago, St. Louis, and also the defending Stanley Cup champion Edmonton Oilers on their way to the finals. And surprise, surprise, the North Stars actually won 2 of the first 3 games. People forget about that. And then the Penguins, with an ailing Mario Lemieux and his back issues so bad he couldn't even tie his skates and all that, but he still played his damn heart out and got Pittsburgh the Stanley Cup. An 8-0 win in Game 6 will help you out. Goal scorers included the great Korean Jimmy Pak. Amazing. The Penguins went 8-0 in Game 6 to win the Stanley Cup in Minnesota, of all places. Pittsburgh would return a few key players. I know in 92 that in the playoff run, they ended up trading away Mark Recchi to Philadelphia for Ken Reagan because they needed a backup goalie they could trust, as Frank Pietrangelo was traded to Hartford to try to help Hartford with their playoff drive, which failed miserably to the Habitants. But the biggest thing was a subtraction, as Coach Badger Bob Johnson of the Penguins was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Sadly, he lost his fight with the disease in November 1991. Scotty Bowman, who basically walked away from coaching and all that after his tumultuous time in Buffalo, decided to pick up the pieces and become the head coach of the Penguins that year in 1992. And boy, howdy, was that a big move. Pittsburgh actually could have fucked it up. They lost in 1992. The first 3 of the first 4 games to the Washington Capitals, and thinking, well, Washington's going to get revenge for last year's debacle. But one problem, though, the Penguins came back with 3 straight wins over those bastards, if you will. Their second round victory guided them into the that was first round. Guided them against the New York Rangers, who were President's Trophy winners in 1992 and wanted to prove their worthiness. Rangers had a 2-1 series lead when all of a sudden Ron Francis puts a 50-footer on Mike Richter in the net. The Rangers shakily decided to give Van Beesbrook the starting goalie reins, and it didn't work as the Penguins won in overtime on a goal by, I believe, Troy Loney was in somehow. But anyway, the Penguins won that Game 4, won Game 5 and 6. The Rangers also had to deal with Adam Graves being suspended for his hack on Lemieux, which people thought that it was unfair Graves getting all that punishment because it was Mario Lemieux. The Penguins will go on to face the Boston Bruins again for the conference finals. And guess what? They beat the Bruins. Not just beat them, they swept them. The Boston Bruins were swept in 92. 91, it took 6 games, but 92, it was 4. Penguins would take on the Chicago Blackhawks. Ironically, the Chicago Blackhawks of that year had won 11 straight playoff games to that point. Penguins had won 7. One winning streak had to end, obviously, but both could have ended within the same series. Penguins were in trouble in Game 1, but thanks to a smooth goal around 3 or 4 defenders from Jaromir Jagr to tie the game at 5, Mario Lemieux found the strength with less than 20 seconds left to score the winning goal to send Chicago to a loss, finally. And the Penguins didn't stop there. They were up 3 games to none. They played a crazy Game 4 that saw Dirk Graham with a hat trick for the Blackhawks in the first period. Sadly, though, the Penguins won the game 6-5, despite Dominik Hasek being in net for the Blackhawks. Oh, did we mention that Dominik Hasek used to play for the Blackhawks before the Sabres? No, nobody knew that. Hasek went in a 1992 trade to Buffalo for the rights to Stefan Bubigard and a draft pick that ended up being Eric Daze. As Blackhawks could only protect one goalie in the expansion draft, and they didn't think Hasek. They didn't want Hasek to go to Tampa or Ottawa. So anyway, the Pittsburgh Penguins had won back-to-back Stanley Cups. 93, they were strong as ever. With 56 wins, that's amazing, in an 84-game schedule. Oh, by the way, did we forget to tell you that in 93, the NHL decided to add some extra games to each one. They used to play 80, now they're playing 84, especially 2 games, neutral site games. They wanted to bring hockey to like Hamilton, Charlottetown, Miami, and a few other cities. Cleveland, it was kind of creepy. Kind of like it, and I kind of don't like it. Like Halifax, too. It's funny seeing the neutral site games. But anyway, what was important about that 56, 21-7 Penguins team in 93 was that they played most of their season without Mario Lemieux, who had that back injury. And also non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Unfortunately for Lemieux, it took the life out of him with the chemotherapy. But once he got his final thing of chemo, he decided to join the team March 2nd in Philadelphia. And he scored a goal as the Flyers got beaten up by the Penguins. In fact, that helped the Penguins with a 17-game winning streak. Let me repeat that. It was a 17-game winning streak. Not undefeated. It was a winning streak. Now, back in those days, in the 90s, you went to overtime, which was 5 minutes. If you didn't score a goal and the opponent didn't score a goal, it was a tie, not like the shootout. So 17 straight wins. I know a few of them were probably overtime aided, as they broke the record of the 1982 Islanders, who actually had 15 straight without the benefit of overtime at all. Penguins did tie the Devils on the final day of the season, so bad luck. So then the Penguins were up to something. Mario Lemieux came back from chemo and not only won the scoring title, he ripped everyone apart with his points per game streaks, beating Pat LaFontaine, who had the title won. Anyhow, Lemieux and the Penguins made short work of, I believe, the Devils in the first round. I think it was the Devils. I can't remember. Who was the first round? But the New York Islanders awaited the Penguins in the Stanley Cup quarterfinals. The Islanders had one goal: destroy Marty Lemieux at all costs. Darius Kasparaitis took the assignment to heart, and Lemieux was hacked, chapped, and chopped. Chapped and chopped. And it worked. The Islanders forced a Game 7 in Pittsburgh. Penguins were down 2-0, but they didn't quit. They scored 2 quick goals in the third period to tie the game, and then David Folek. I can remember the call by the great Chris Cuthbert. Down the ice, Folek scores! David Folek, Islanders, there will be a new Stanley Cup champion in 1993. Amazingly. And here's the thing, Al Arbour was behind the bench. Al Arbour was not supposed to be behind the bench for the New York Islanders after retiring a couple years prior, but he was there, and he helped the Islanders shock the Penguins in Game 7. Dave Folek is not really known as anything but a has-been. Holy bananas, David Folek. So the New York Islanders went on to win that game. Unfortunately for the Islanders, karma bit them in the butt as Montreal sent the Islanders packing with a 5-game series win, and Montreal went on to win the Stanley Cup. Penguins, big blown opportunity. I mean, come on, you have some great players, and you can't beat a pesky New York Islanders team in 1993. For the longest time, that was actually the last Islanders playoff series win for 23 years until John Tavares helped the Islanders send Florida away in the first round of the 2016 playoffs. So anyway, that's the team we're doing. But after that, Pittsburgh had a few decent years, but unfortunately Lemieux retired once because of all the back injuries and all the obstruction penalties that the NHL finally took seriously after Lemieux retired. But just for that 1 year. Lemieux in 97 would help the Penguins do well, and then he retired for 3 years until December 2000 when he decides to lace on the skates. The main story was that with Pittsburgh having troubles paying bills and all that, Lemieux decided to forego his owner's salary to get back on the ice and help the Penguins do well. And so he did. He led the Penguins to a close call with getting to the Stanley Cup Finals. They did lose in the conference finals to the Devils, though. But it was close. Darius Kasparaitis, remember him? He's a teammate of Lemieux, and he beat the Buffalo Sabres and sent the Sabres home in the second round, I think. Or was it the first round? I can't remember. I think it was second round, 98. But anyway, in 2001. But yeah, the Penguins did okay for a little bit, but then the Penguins just lost a lot of things. Lost a lot of hope. Ownership was staying afloat. People thought Pittsburgh might be sold off to other people and all that. Mario Lemieux was still playing on the ice. And then the stupid 2005 strike hits. Pittsburgh gets the lucky draw and gets the #1 draft pick, which they get Crosby. Combine that with the #2 pick from 2004, that being Gino Malkin. Pittsburgh had some young talent. Lemieux was fine, but then Lemieux got injured, and basically 2006 was his last year. People still remember Sidney Crosby's shootout winner in Pittsburgh against the Canadiens in the first ever game against a Canadian NHL team in TSN, going ballistic over it. Welcome to the Crosby Show, Canada, they said. Great Gordon Miller. Pittsburgh would go on to do magic. 2008 and 2009, they got to the Stanley Cup Finals. They lost to the Red Wings in 2008. Same two teams in 2009. Penguins won. Sidney Crosby led the Penguins 4 years after he got drafted. He got drafted, and then he led the Penguins to the Stanley Cup. A Game 7 win in Detroit, of all people. Marc-Andre Fleury's spectacular save in the final seconds off Lidstrom. It's huge. Pittsburgh would have a few other golden chances, but they always came up flat in playoff time. Not even getting to the finals. 2016 changed that. They changed their way of thinking, and in 2016, thanks to Matt Murray taking over for an ailing Marc-Andre Fleury between the pipes, the Penguins shockingly won the Stanley Cup. And the funny thing is that Matt Murray and Marc-Andre Fleury, both goalies, got at least 7 playoff wins in that 16-win season. Playoff season. That is the most in NHL history. That's the only time that's happened. 2 goalies have 7 playoff wins or more on the same team. Yikes. Penguins would go on to win another Stanley Cup over the San Jose Sharks in 2017. Crosby happy about it. And Phil Kessel, although he was a former Leaf. Yeah. Penguins have a little bit of regression in them, but what can you expect? So anyway, this what if is basically the 93 Penguins. This does not give them a chance to the Stanley Cup Finals. This gives them a key to the Stanley Cup semifinals or the conference finals against the Montreal Canadiens. Now, if the Penguins lose to the Canadiens, obviously it's game over and the simulation's over. However, if the Penguins beat the Habs, they will face the LA Kings because we don't mess up the other conference. So the Kings do get to the Stanley Cup Finals, even though, I want Toronto in there. I have to be smart. So could Lemieux and Gretzky face each other in a playoff series? It's possible. We shall wait and see. Here we are, Habs and Penguins. Penguins, of course, get home ice because of their fantastic season of 56-21-7. The Habs 48-30-6. So Dompus, Muller, Gary Lehman. I don't know if he was basically that good. So it's Dompus, Muller, and Bellows. Brian Bellows has been great. Watt versus Barrasso. Great work. Starting defense line, Desjardins. Should be Schneider and Desjardins. I don't know why it isn't. Game 1 sees the Pittsburgh Penguins win the game 7-4. Key win for them. Mike Keane scores the first goal of the series at 5:48 from Bellows and Schneider. Bob Erie, 7 seconds later, gets a quick goal from Straka and Tocchet. I didn't know Straka played for the 93 Penguins. I know he was a fan favorite for Pittsburgh. Kevin Stevens gets a big goal from Lemieux and Yager to make it 2-1 Penguins. Ron Francis makes it 3-1 for key goal. Joe Mullen gets a power play goal after Hollard goes off for roughing to make it 4-1. Habs score goals, Stefan LeBeau made it 4-2. With Sanderson and the Bucks for elbowing, Montreal should have a chance to win the game. Not so fast. Ron Francis scores a shorthanded goal from Jimmy Pock and Bob Erie. Waugh is chased and sent to Charles Shabbat comes in net. Brian Bellows in the third period scores a big goal from LeBeau and Schneider. But Mario Lemieux makes it 6-3. Denny Savard makes it 6-4. There's the Denny Savard we know and love. But Yager scores to make it 7-4 from Kjell Samuelsson. Remember him? So we talked about the players on the 93 Habs because they were part of the last what if with the Leafs. But anyway, Kjell Samuelsson. I didn't know they had both Samuelsson. Jimmy Paxton was around. Grant Jennings. Bob Erie. Peter Tangaletti. Mike Ramsey. I know him from the Sabres and all that. Dave Tippett. Former NHL coach Dave Tippett. Jay Caulfield. Creepy. Anyway, Shabbat didn't really do that well. Lemieux, Yager, Francis. 1, 2, 3 are your stars of the game. Well, it's got to do a lot better. And who can blame them? But the Penguins win the game. Ulf Samuelsson scored within 12 seconds from Stevens and Yager. Kirk Muller puts up a goal for the Habitants quickly. Make it 1-1. Yager scores from Lemieux and Stevens. Then Tocchet scores from Straka and Kjell Samuelsson. Gary Lehman scores a goal to make it 3-2. Mario Lemieux scores a key goal to make it 4-2, and then scores on a rebound to make it 5-2. And in 25 minutes, Waugh is replaced by Freddie Shabbat. Sean McEachran puts up 2 goals in the second period to make it. That can't be right. 2 goals in 3 seconds. How can Sean McEachran score 2 goals in 3 seconds? Something's off about that. So it's 7-2. Ulf Samuelsson gets ejected for a boarding call. So he's gone. The Habs take advantage, scoring 2 goals on that power play. Kirk Muller and Kevin Holler make it 7-4. Brian Bellows makes it interesting, 7-5. Stevens goes off for slashing. Habs can't take advantage of that, and it costs them dearly. Rick Tocchet scores a goal to make it 8-5. Amazing, 8-5. Freddie Shabbat, 3 goals given up on 26 shots. I believe he lost the game for them. Lemieux, Muller, and Yager are named the 3 stars of the game. Craig Muller, 2nd star that fast. Well, So basically, the Habs have to go home with their tails between the legs. They'll love to. The ghosts of the form don't help them this time. Kirk Muller scores quickly from Valpoose, make it 1-0. But Mario Lemieux scores a goal at 12:31 to make it 1-1. Joe Mullen in the second period at 13 minutes, 24 seconds, scores to make it 2-1. All that. Gary Leeman played with a broken stick and got penalized. So a power play comes up. And Lemieux, just like, the Mario Lemieux of old, he scores with Stevenson Tockett. There, Stefan LeBeau makes it 3-2 on a goal from Keane. But at 7:02, Kevin Stevens with the goal from Yager and Lemieux make it 4-2, and that was it. That was it. Watt played the whole game. But Lemieux, Barrasso, Stevens, the 3 stars of the game. So Pittsburgh could sweep Montreal. Man, the Islanders just... And the sweep was on, as the Habs don't even have a prayer. Sean McEachran scores in the first minute from Murphy and Francis. Mario Lemieux, once again, he scores a key goal from Stevens and Yager. Joe Mullen makes it 3-0 from McEachran and Francis. Matthew Schneider does get a strong goal to make it 3-1, but Yager from Lemieux and Grant Jennings scored from Urian Tockett. Waugh chased. Brian Bellows makes it 5-2, but nothing much happens, as practically the Habs try to throw everything at Mr. Barrasso, but failed miserably. Shabbat gives up 16 shots in 30 minutes, but saves them all. Lemieux, Yager, McEachran, 1-2-3. And the Penguins have a sweep. So the Penguins are the home team against the Los Angeles Kings. Obviously, we have to make the changes because, it's Gretzky. Kelly Rudy's coming in. It's Gretzky versus Lemieux. Can you believe it? Shitnik and Blake are the starting defensive pair. Let's do Shitnik. I know he was a Sabres legend, but I didn't know he played for the 93 Kings. So we do the playoff format, of course. Game 1 goes to the Penguins, 8-6. And yes, there were a lot of high-scoring games in the 90s. You just didn't see them. Ron Francis scores the first goal of the Stanley Cup Finals from Joe Mullen, make it 1-0. And then after Rob Blake got hooked for 2 minutes for one sports block, Sean McEachran scored from Mullen and Murphy on the power play. Robitaille made it 2-1 for the Kings. And then on the power play, after Yager goes off cross-checking, Robitaille ties it. But good old Sean McEachran makes it 3-2. And after Granado goes to the box for a cross-check, Paul Stanton makes it 4-2. Mario makes it 5-2 on a key goal from Stevenson and Yager. That sent Kelly Rudy out of the net for Rick Nickel. I thought it was Rick Nickel. Anyway, Yager scores to make it 6-2 from Lemieux and Stevens. The Kings get a key goal from Corey Millen, make it 6-3. But Mario does it again, 7-3. Luc Robitaille scores from Sandstrom and Gretzky in the first minute of the third period to get a hat trick. But his team failed flat. Kevin Stevens makes it 8-4. The Kings put up a pair of goals. Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille score goals. I believe Samuelson got booted from the game or something. Oh no, there's an ejection on Rick Tocchet for his elbowing call. That's why he had the power play. Penguins put 61 shots on LA goalies. Nickel, 3 goals on 30 shots. Rudy, 5 on 23. Tocchet gets ejected. Lemieux, Robitaille, Mullen, the stars of the game. Well, Robitaille scored 4 goals. Can you blame him that he wasn't named number 1 star? And then the Penguins roar with a 12-3 win. Unbelievable. They were up 6-0 after 1 period. Joel Mullen, Kevin Stevens, Jaromir Jagr, Sean McEachran, Ron Francis, Bobby Urey. 6 different goal scorers. Rudy is yanked after 5 goals. Penguins then scored Tocchet, Mullen, and Murphy. 8 different goal scorers for 9 goals for the Penguins. Jimmy Carson, the troubled teenager, scored to make it 9-1. After Tocchet made it 10-1, they decided to put Rudy back in the net. And for the most part, he does okay. Rob Blake made it 10-2. Robitaille made it 10-3. Lemieux made it 11-3. Then Rick Tocchet gets his hat trick. Mark Pop then gets ejected for the LA Kings for his knee hit. So the final tally, 12 goals on 73 shots by the Penguins. Something must be wrong with the algorithm. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about the Kings of 93 having such luminaries as John McIntyre, Mike Donnelly, Lonnie Loach, Corey Miller, Mark Potvin, Brent Thompson, Guy Levesque, Jim Hiller. Weird. Kelly Rudy gives up 7 goals on 39 shots. Nickel, 5 goals on 22 shots. The stars were Tocchet, Mullet, and Stevens. All Penguins. Can you blame them? So there we get ourselves into a fun fact. Game 3 in Los Angeles. Pittsburgh's put up lots of freaking goals. And they win again. That's like, how many straight wins? Well, they won Game 7 against the Islanders. They lost Game 6. So this is now number 8 in a row for them. 7-3. Tocchet scored a goal. Yager and Stevens, 3 goals in 5 minutes. Ron Francis makes it 4-0 before Lemieux sticks one in the net. 5 different goal scorers for the Penguins. God, this team is like freaking amazing. Rudy is booted after 13 minutes. Penguins scored another goal. Ron Francis, shorthanded after Samuelson got booted for a cross-check. Made it 6-0. Jimmy Carson and Alex Shipnick made it 6-2. Mike Donnelly made it 6-3 on a shorthanded goal after Robitaille was in the box. But Yager scored the 7th Penguin goal. Shots were 50-40. Rick Nickel. Look at that. 2 goals on 34 shots. Giving up. Rudy only saved 64% of his shots. The stars of the game were Lemieux, Yager, and Stevens. Amazing. Great job. So now we have a problem. The Kings were down 3-0. They're like, we're fucked. And maybe Rick Nickel will be the star of the goalie. They know that Rudy is terrible. Well, can't blame them for trying. And once again, Pittsburgh gets their 2 for 2 and what ifs. They win 7-3. Paul Coffey. People forget he played for the 93 Kings. He made it 1-0 for the Kings. Wow. Joe Mullen and Kevin Stevens would bring back some recency. Sean McEachran scored for the Penguins to make it 3-1. Corey Miller made it 3-2. Wow, look at the Kings. Yager scored to make it 4-2. McSorley gets a major for knee, which means he's ejected. Nice try, LA. On the power play, 2 goals were scored. Larry Murphy and Ron Francis. Rick Nickel is gone. Rudy comes in the net. Curry scores to make it 6-3. But Rick Tocchet made it 7-3, and it was not even close. The rest of the way. The Penguins were just, like, huge. You got Mario Lemieux, Kevin Stevens, Yager Yager, Alfin Shell Samuelson, Larry Murphy, Paul Stanton, Sean McEachran, Ron Francis, Rick Tocchet, Joe Mullen, Graham Jennings, Jim Pack, Bob Urey, Marty Straka, Peter Tanganelletti, Mike Ramsey, and Dave Tippett scoring goals for the Penguins. I mean, to get their names on the Stanley Cup. Nickel's save percentage was terrible. Murphy, Lemieux, McEachran, the 3 starts of the game. You gotta give it to Mario Lemieux for the Conn Smythe for the 3rd fucking time. Mark Potvin got injured. Warren Ryko got ejected. Huh. I didn't see that. When did he? I guess for cross-checking someone after Potvin got hurt. So the Penguins easily won this thing. Amazing. Amazing grace, people. Can you believe it? They won the cup. The Penguins would have swept everyone. They stomped the pain away with the Habs, and they stomped the Kings away. Imagine what would have happened if the 93 Penguins had another chance. Well, scratch my back with a hacksaw. That's what I have to say to that scenario.